The opinions expressed in the following program are those of the producer and not necessarily those of WKTV Community Media.
Hello, everybody. This is Brandon Jose, and welcome to another episode of the Grand Rapids Ghost Hunters podcast. Make sure to check out the show. You can check it out on my YouTube channel, Jose Paranormal History Productions. Jose is spelled Hoezee, or just look up Grand Rapids Ghost Hunters. You'll be able to find it there. That will have our archive on my channel of all of our older episodes. You can also find us on the Whole Picture Podcast on Facebook, or search the Grand Rapids Ghost Hunters. We do have a Facebook page. We just search Grand Rapids Ghost Hunters. So today I'm just gonna introduce my co-host, Kim Colleen.
Hi, my name is Kim Colleen, even though it says Genevieve on the bottom. Can you see that? Can you see where it says Genevieve?
Yeah.
Okay, that's my daughter. Don't worry about, my name's not Genevieve. I'm Kim Colleen. I'm coming to you from Holland, Michigan, and I've been with the Grand Rapids Paranormal podcast for, I don't know, 5 years, Brandon? Has it been 5 years now?
Yeah, I think we started 2019, I think.
Okay, so that's when I was one of the originals. So thank you for being here, Kathy. I can't wait to start talking to you. Go ahead, Tanya.
Hi, I'm Tanya Geyer-Sager. We're coming up a year for me. I've been with you guys for a year. I'm really excited to get to know and with my new job, get to travel more. So I can't wait to talk about some of the locations in Kathy's book, because I plan on visiting them.
That's cool. Maybe share, where are you from?
Oh, and I'm recording from Reynoldsburg, a suburb of Columbus, Ohio.
There you go. Not a Michigander like us.
The lone nut out of a bunch of Wolverines, you know.
There you go. I know, right? Welcome, Kathy. Tell us about yourself.
Hold on, I just want to give a little bit of an intro here.
Sorry.
I have her book here. It's author of Hauntings, Spirits, and Eats, Michigan. It has different haunted locations. It's really nice if you're a ghost hunter, you're looking for like places to go. I would check this book out. Like a lot of it, it's about a page or two right up on the brief history of it. It does have some of the restaurants kind of like food and stuff that you can get there. And the nice thing is, like at the beginning of each one, and it has different counties like all over the state of Michigan. And it does have like a nice little, like the address, well, at least for the ones that you can give the address and contact information if somebody would want to go check out that location. So, but today's special guest is Kathy Conder. If you want to just give a kind of a brief introduction to yourself, Kathy, and what kind of got you into the paranormal field.
Well, I actually think I'm kind of a dinosaur, when it comes to this, among all the other paranormal investigators that I've met, because I've been doing it for coming up on 39 years now. So it's something that, I've been in it a long time, and my interest and experience has grown over the years. And, but I had people asking me, where would you recommend that places that we might want to visit that are reported to be active? And so finally I thought, why don't I just put it all down in a book, break it down by county. So if people want to do a weekend trip or a day trip, but just to give them a little bit of background. And I realized just because I say a place is or isn't haunted, everybody experiences things so differently. So what I tried to do was bring my personal experience in these different places up. So at least I could kind of give my input and say, I can't guarantee what you'll find, but my experience has been this, whether it was a positive or a negative or whatever. So yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. Have been interested in it for as far back as I can remember. I really can't put a date on it, but I do really feel that it was something I've been drawn to and was meant to pursue.
Okay, well, that's great. I'll probably do like one of the locations that we met, if we want to talk about one of them in the book. And this one I know you have a lot of history at. It's the cover art on the book there. That's the Robinson Manor. If you want to talk
Yeah.
a little bit about kind of your experiences at that location.
Well, I lived in New England, well, Michigan first, and then New England for a while in Connecticut, and um, really got into organized investigation with a group up there. And when we came back to Michigan, I really wanted to get started again, but I really wasn't sure where. So I did some research, and um, I've always felt that the Allegan area is quite paranormally active, just in general, not just the one building, but many, many of them are. And so one day I took a trip up there and stopped in at the Robinson Manor, which originally was built as a hospital back in 1909. But when I went there, this must have been 15 years ago, the first time, it was the Elks Lodge, the local Elks Lodge. And so I went up and knocked on the door and was invited in by the woman who at the time was the kind of the leader of that group of elks, and a very nice woman. And she, offered me a seat at the bar, and we talked for a while. And so she started telling me stories about the which was originally the John Robinson Hospital, and told me quite a few stories. So kind of what got me started on that particular building. It was the first one in the Allegan area, and the one I'd probably been associated with for the longest period of time. So it's really one of my very favorites. And so I couldn't resist putting that on the cover of the book, because it's one of my favorite places in Allegan. And you've been there, I know, Brandon. So
Yeah.
you had a feel for that.
Yeah. I know,
It's
like
a beautiful building.
Pardon me?
It's a beautiful building
It
too.
is. It's amazing.
Yeah, I know one of the experiences I had up there was the team that I was on at the time. We were assisting, Rick Wade was hosting an event there. And we were upstairs, up like that very top area that was like the old rooms.
Like the
And-
third floor, yeah.
Third floor, yeah. And there was a bunch of like there was about 6 of us or so in that group. And I had like my camera up, and I was trying to I was checking the viewfinder on my camera. And they were going around, like each person would like ask a question. So when I got to like my turn, I was still kind of looking in the viewfinder. So I wasn't, all of a sudden I heard my name called. So then, then I asked the question, and then like when they're playing it back on the recorder, they're like, "Oh, your name was called." And my camera picked it up as well. But everybody's like, "Nobody called your name."
Oh,
Like
really?
your turn, nobody said your name. And I'm like, "Well, I heard my name called," but like everybody else insisted that my name was not called.
Interesting.
That was at least my experience there that I can remember.
Well, that was a good one, I'd say. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is pretty consistently active. And the interesting thing to me, and the same goes for a lot of the places that I go to, different locations kind of react to the people that are there differently. Like some places you feel an affinity for, some places you might feel very unwelcome in. And so I always think it's kind of nice when they validate with a name, because that's something that's hard to say, well, that was stray radio signal or whatever. I mean, it was your name and you were there. So
Yeah. Yeah, and it wasn't over a spirit box either. It was just audible EVP.
yeah. And I have heard voices in real time there as well.
Yeah.
Children laughing. We can hear a lot of footsteps from the second floor, which was the original ward for the hospital when it was first built. And so I imagine that's where a lot of activity during the operation hospital went on. And it would make sense that even if it's residual energy, it's just kind of stored there, that we'd still be picking up on that like 120 years later. Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, especially in a hospital setting, because you have a lot of
Oh,
emotion going on
Yes.
in the hospital.
And
Yeah.
that's the interesting thing too, though, about the John Robinson hospital is, I think a fair amount of the energy also comes from the fact that we believe they use the basement as a sort of a, I don't think they distilled alcohol there, but they moved it out of the building there. And so there was a strong connection between the kind of the organized crime and the gangsters. There's a strong tie between that and what the activity that we get today is. It's just, they're just layers and layers. And so it's never gets boring and it never gets dull, at least for me, because it's never the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that was after Robinson owned it, right? Or was
Yes.
it, yeah, the
It
guy that
started
bought it
with-
afterward?
Yeah, we think that it started with when Dr. Robinson built it, he built it as a not-for-profit hospital. He didn't want to charge anybody. I mean, he was really a great man. A lot of people in Allegan thought very highly of him, but eventually he was ready to retire. And so he sold the hospital to a doctor from Chicago who immediately switched it to a for-profit hospital. And we believe, because of the time frame and some of the information that we've collected over the years, that maybe he had some dealings or connections with Capone, because Al Capone had a very strong presence throughout Michigan, but Southwest Michigan. And so, yeah, it's the type of history that you're not going to find in history books. But the next best thing, at least for me, when I'm researching, is to talk to as many people that were around back then, and those get fewer and fewer. But there were some very strange stories that people would share with.
Yeah, that's always one of the ones I always wondered on, is because like the Al Capone one, there's so many
Oh,
Al Capone stories, and like Gun Lake, and like we had like Nick Finks was an old bar we used to investigate in Comstock Park. There are rumors of him there, like the Yellow Motel, another spot in Allegan, which is an old hotel that had burned down. Let's say it was in the 90s, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
yeah, it's out in Pullman, and
Yeah.
yeah, well, and I think it goes back to, there was a photograph of Al Capone sitting in front of the Yellow Motel when it was a resort. It was called Wildwood Resort originally when he went there. And there's Al Capone and a bunch of other men about his age. We assume they were part of his group. And I think his daughter and his dog was in the picture. And so I do believe he definitely went there. In fact, he invited some really well-known people that he knew that were famous. Like, I think Jerry Lewis went to the Yellow Motel as his guest once. Dean Martin, I think. There were just a lot of famous people that would come and go there. And so I think, like with any story like that, and I'm sure you're aware of this from, your investigations, but it's what starts out with a little kernel of truth tends to grow and grow. And the more people that hear it, they add their little bit to it. So, and I've been out there quite a few times, and I'm not saying that there isn't activity there, but there's been nothing really strong that I felt from that location.
Yeah, that's one I've never actually investigated myself, but I've know from a few guests that we've had on there, people reporting seeing like a 20s era car
That's
driving down the road and then disappear.
Yes,
So
and
I've had a few different people I've heard that story from.
yeah, and
Seen different.
I think another one is that people have seen a little white dog that will run through the woods. The nice thing about the old Yellow Motel place is that it's situated on public land. So anyone can go there. I just would be really careful during hunting season because there are hunters all over the place there. But it's a place that, I think a lot of us would like to be able to investigate some well-known places where we didn't have to pay to investigate. And this is one of those places that people can go on their own and check it out.
And then I had, let's see, what's another? Oh, the Felt Mansion. That's another one where we were both there investigating at the same time.
That's right.
So for mine, did you have any experiences while you were there? Or we can actually do some of the history of the building.
Well, I don't remember. But didn't we sit at one point, sit around the dining room table and kind of to see if we could connect with anybody that was there? I don't know if you were off in another building at that time. Were you, or were you?
I'm not sure if I was at the table at the time, or it's been a while since, because I know like I spent time between there and then the carriage house, and then that one you got like 3 different floors in the main, then you got like 3 different floors in the carriage house. There's
It's huge.
a lot of area. Yeah.
Well, we tried to do sort of a kind of a spirit circle, I guess you might call it a seance, but we did try to connect with any spirits that might be there. And that's not, I mean, I don't normally approach investigation from, if I were to see something or hear something, I tend to just want to see what happens. So it's not like I was really opening myself up to see anything, but we got going on it. And then a little ways through, I kind of glanced up and I saw 3 young, they looked like they were 16 or 17 standing in the corner. And they were saying, shh, shh, it's a secret, because we were asking about Mr. Felt and, what were some of the things that happened when any of you were here before. And girls were shushing each other, like, shh, shh. And so I kind of tried to draw them out a little bit, and then they were gone. And so I thought, well, didn't really get much of that, and we didn't get a whole lot else while sitting at the table. But the next day, I did call one of the people that was in charge of organizing it, and I asked if the furniture, because I had a couple of questions. So I said, was the furniture you have there now original to when the Felts lived here in the mansion? And she said, well, the only things we have that are original in this whole place are 3 beds that belong to the maids. And they were in a certain part in the corner of the house, and we still have their 3 beds here. I thought, well, that's odd. I just saw 3 young women that I thought were dressed like they were part of the housekeeping staff. They had long aprons on. And so I thought that was pretty cool, but now it kind of sparked my interest. Like, what was the big secret that they were telling each other not to say anything about? So that was one very interesting thing that I got from the night that I was there.
Yeah. And then for the Felt Mansion, that people don't know, it's a big mansion that was built. It's around like the Saugatuck area of Michigan on the West Coast. And it was built, there was a guy who built it's like, they're called like, I believe, a compumeter. It was kind of like basically an early version of almost like a calculator. Kind of did something similar to that. And then he built the house there, which is, I think it was more kind of to be like his wife's kind of like dream home. And after about like 6 months, his wife ended up passing away. And like he ended up, Dorfelt, like he ended up passing away, I want to say about 2 years later, or 2.5 years. After it was built. Yeah.
Yes.
So then like the building itself, after that, it became, if I want to say it was the Catholic Church bought it and like turned it into like a boarding school.
They
and
like
then it was,
or something like that. Yeah.
yeah. And then it was turned over to like the Michigan State Police used it as like a headquarters, because they had like the prison or whatever, the bigger jail down the street. So they used it as kind of like an office building, and then it sat abandoned for a long time. So it was actually been like my cousin ended up eventually finding it and then rebuilding or fixing it all back up. So now it's used as like an event venue.
Yes, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
When you guys were there, did you pick up any weird like EVP things, or remember when the EMF meter that I borrowed from you, Brandon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went there that night when they had an event and used the EMF and just was walking around upstairs in the carriage house area. And it was like, this thing would just go off the charts randomly. And you weren't even by anything electrical. You were like standing in the middle of the room. And this thing, did you guys have that too, where it would just do these odd EMF readers?
Yeah,
Uh,
I think so. I don't know what Brandon, but I heard from some of the other people that were there with us that
Yeah.
they got a lot of activity in the carriage house.
Yeah, yeah. And then in the girls' bedrooms upstairs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were getting some really odd readings. And I said to the tour operator that was there that night, I said, do you have any sort of clue why this would be going off? Is there any electrical around here? She goes, no, there's nothing but you're standing in the middle of the bedroom. There's
Yeah.
nothing near you. And we were like sitting on the beds and the EMF detector was just going crazy, like just topping out. And we couldn't figure out for the life of us why that was, unless there was some sort of presence there.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me at all. Well, and
Yeah.
I had that night to, we're all getting our rooms, and I ended up in Dora Felt's room. And, I wasn't, I went to bed earlier than a lot of the other people I was there with, but I was just exhausted that night. And so I got into bed, fell asleep immediately. And then in the morning, just starting to get light. It was just kind of pre-dawn, but I was laying on my side and I could hear somebody breathing next to me, like right above my head, but it was like that, just very normal, like a pattern of breathing. And
That's
all
a little unsettling.
well,
Yeah.
well, I was laying on my side and I kept thinking, do I really want to turn around and see who's laying in bed? I mean, I would have been much more afraid of a person in bed next to me than a spirit. That wouldn't bother me, but I didn't know. It sounded so real. And so I compromised and put my hand over beside me. And honestly, the temperature was clearly colder than even was on my side of the bed. It was very contained. And I thought, well, maybe it's time to get up and have some coffee. So I did. I mean, I didn't stick around, but my guess, it could have been Mr. Felt. I don't know, but it was weird that it was in his room and all of that. So yeah.
You slept in the master bedroom where the fireplace is, where
Right.
the big fireplace.
I don't
That
remember
room?
there. All I know is I was just so tired, but it was
Oh.
his. I know that.
Okay, so I'm just trying to get a scope of what room you were
Yeah.
in. It's the one with the big fireplace, and then there's like the seasoned porch on the side.
No, that might be Mrs. Felt's.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's the Agnes room, and then the room just outside of it is the door Felt room.
Okay,
They're all
gotcha.
kind of named after the different family members, and like there's like other rooms that were named after like the daughters.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
On from there, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, but it for as much time as I really felt like I was sort of concentrating on doing what I was supposed to be doing there, I had some really unique experiences. It's a great place to go
It
to.
is a great place.
Pardon me?
It is a great place to investigate.
It does. And it's so big. I think you get that choice of picking where you feel the energy is, and because it's big enough for a lot of people, and
Mhm.
it was great.
See, I think if I was in your shoes, I would have said, okay, enough. I hear you. I'm going back to sleep, and probably fell back to sleep.
Well, and this probably will sound really strange to you, Tanya, but that is usually what I do.
That doesn't sound strange at all.
About that breathing on the back of my neck just made me a little bit creeped out. And so I don't think, and I can tell you this with absolute honesty, because I've been doing this for so long, there's very little that really scares me anymore. It just, I guess I always think that I've never had an experience where something or someone has tried to hurt me ever. I mean, I've been touched, I've been shoved, but I've never had a reason to right.
Now, when that happens to you, where you get touched or when you get shoved or anything like that, where you have that personal physical experience, what is
Yes.
your initial reaction to it?
I get startled because I don't always feel something coming up to, leading up to that. There's another location in the book, and I don't know if any of you have been to the Thunder Bay Inn up in Big Bay, up in the UP of Michigan.
No.
But it's really well known for being very, very haunted. And I was up there once when I was writing the book because it was one of the places. Seems like are you from Ohio?
I am.
Okay, so in Michigan, when people just think it's, well, we'll just hop in the car and go up to the UP, but it's can be like a 10, 11-hour drive, depending on where you're going. So there weren't a whole lot of places that I'd been able to hit up there. I decided that I wanted to go and do the Big Bay Inn because Ford owned it when he was really big in the automobile industry. And so I got to stay in his room, which was very cool. And the owners and the hosts at the inn are very good about sharing the history and stories. And so one night after everybody went to bed, I took all of my stuff and went down they have a big great room with a fireplace, and set up all my equipment and did all the things I was going to do, and sat there and was quiet for a while, did a few EVP sessions. And then it was about 3:30, and I thought, I think I'll go upstairs and get a little bit of sleep. But there's some really steep steps, and I think there may be a picture of them in my book. But I grabbed as much of my stuff as I can carry. And for me, that's the part of paranormal investigation, is taking my crap out of there. I hate that part. But I had to gather it all up and was going up the stairs. And I'm a little bit klutzy. Like I am a klutz, not a little bit. I'm a real. So that made it even more ridiculous that I was going to carry all these stuff up those stairs. But I started going up the steps. Everybody else in the building was asleep. And I got about 2/3 of the way up, and my tip of my toe kind of missed that next step. And I felt myself lose my balance, my equilibrium. And I don't think this has ever happened to me in all the years I've done this before. But I started to lose my balance and go backward. And all I could think of was that they were going to find me at the bottom of the stairs with a broken neck the next morning, covered with paranormal equipment, because I had so much of it. And suddenly, as I started to go back, and it was just a couple of inches, I hit something. And it wasn't hard, but it wasn't squishy soft. I just know that it was there and it had substance. And very gently, it pushed me forward, and I got my balance again. And then I walked up the rest of the stairs, and I didn't see that coming. But it also was a good reminder to me that when you're looking for spirit, and you're not dealing with a one-dimensional entity, they were all people, most of them. And, we're all very different from each other. And so consequently, the spirits that you interact with are going to be very different. And I had always thought people that got pushed or scratched or stuff like that, or slapped. I mean, I always kind of thought that it must be something negative. They must always be negative. They're going to physically interact with us. But this obviously was trying to help me, and it wasn't in any way threatening. So it was really a good experience for me, because now I don't just automatically assume that even if there's been a history of that happening, first of all, is it really what they intended to do? Or are they just trying to get your attention by a hand on the shoulder or shoving you? Not all of them are very good at getting your attention in a normal way. But this went further than that. So this was a spirit that was actually trying to come to my aid, which was so nice. I mean, I thanked whoever it was, and I said that could have ended so badly. Thank you so much, and then went up to bed. But it's it seems that every time something like this happens, I don't see it coming. Sometimes I can get a feeling of an increased energy that's so strong that I know something's going to happen, but we don't always know what.
Exactly. We don't always know what. And I would have probably done the same thing in your case, would have been like, thank you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
appreciate not having a broken neck at the bottom of the stairs.
Yes, and I promise
I'm a klutz myself.
next time I won't be so stupid, I promise. But yeah, it's true.
What's your favorite location that you've been to that's in the book?
Oh, that's in the book.
See, I throw the curveball.
Yeah, they're, Michigan to me has so much in the way of paranormal activity going on, whether it's cryptid stuff or hauntings or whatever. And I think my theory, and that's not my specialty, is sciences, but I think it's because we're pretty much surrounded by water, and a lot of that fuels the energy of the spirits, so they're more able to manifest in certain ways. And so I've never really doubted that, but the more experience I've had again, the more I've realized that proportionately, it seems like we have a lot of activity state. And as far as a favorite, I mean, I can't even think of one. Maybe the one I have on the cover of the book, just because I have a longer history with that place. And I almost feel like I'm going home when I go there, which is not always the case when I do investigations. So I know, Tanya, it's not a great answer to your question, but
Oh, no, I think it's a fabulous answer, because the one behind me, Mansfield Reformatory, I feel the same way. It's like going home, because it was like my first investigation happened there, and that there's that one that always seems to stick with you.
I think you're right. And I've been to Mansfield, and I was just blown away by it. I mean, that's a pretty awesome place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I'm sure every state has their share of them. I think for me, I always wondered, why didn't you write a book of Gettysburg? Because I've had innumerable experiences there that are even off the charts for me. And so each place, I've learned something along the way. And, now we're used to ghost shows and people's acceptance of what we do as paranormal investigators. But when I started doing this, that wasn't something you talked about, because people thought you were batshit crazy. Seriously. They would almost kind of stand back, like they were afraid they'd catch it if they got too close to you. And then when Ghostbusters came out, I was so excited. I thought, this is so exciting. Somebody's talking about it, and it's a movie, all of this stuff. And so I think consequently, I just kind of learned at my own pace over the years. And I didn't start out with the beliefs that the ghost hunters have, or that Zach Bagans has. I mean, everybody's got their different theories, but I just kind of learned through experience. And I think that's really served me well, because what I've experienced, I know I've experienced. I don't have to worry about the credibility of the person that's telling me the story. So maybe that's why I've never become bored with this. I mean, it still is as fascinating to me today as it was even back when I was a child. I mean, I still am so fascinated by this.
So usually a lot of times people, they've had that one experience at a young age that touched them to make them fascinated by it. Do you have a recollection or memory of
Well,
an experience that drew you into the paranormal?
Yeah. Trust me. Well, I think before, when I was very young, like 5, maybe 6, both of my grandmothers, and I love this because it's a female thing. Sorry, Brandon, but um, it was like I bonded so closely to both of my grandmothers, and they were very different women. Like one was from Greece and one was from Southern Texas, so they were very different. But my maternal grandmother, the one from Texas, at night before we would fall asleep, we slept in twin beds that were, really close together, but she'd always hold my hand at night until I fell asleep. And while we were waiting for me to get sleepy, probably, she would tell me stories of when she was a little girl on this farm in Texas. She was born in 1899. So this would have been like maybe 1915 through 1920. But she told me all of these amazing ghost stories, but they were all true because they happened to her and to her family. And she would tell me these amazing stories. And I know she wasn't trying to scare me. She was telling this like it was our family history, oh, honey, yeah, we've been seeing those forever. And then my other grandmother, she lived up in the mountains in Macedonia, and she would tell me stories about her paranormal experience, which again, they didn't think of them as weird, unusual occurrences, but oh yeah, this happened in my family. And when my brother died, we didn't have telephones back then, so people would have to inform us by word of mouth that they had died. And yet my brother showed up that morning, like an hour after he died, at the window and waved to us, and he had been gone for us. So it was just kind of what they tell me. And back then, I think they were so separated from the technological stuff and that kind of thing that I don't know. I think with that quiet, they heard a lot more, they sensed a lot more. They had a natural intuitiveness that they would see things. People today are just too busy to notice if they do see them. So I think that was it. And then I don't remember one experience, although my mother said that I guess I could have been difficult as a child sometimes because I know this was one of many times I got sent to my room from the dinner table. And so she sent me to my room, and I was up there for a while. And she tells the story that she started to get a feel kind of bad. And so she went up to my room and said, Kathy, do you know why you were sent here? Yes, I know why I was sent. And then, I was ready for the lecture. And she said, well, are you ready to come back upstairs? And I said, oh, yes. And she said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, those two men in the corner have been staring at me and giving me really funny looks. And I tried smiling at them, but they won't smile back. And Mother said, she grabbed me by the arm and pulled me out of the room as fast as she could. So my family was used to this kind of weird stuff I did, but I just don't remember not interested in it. That may sound really strange, but I can't.
Oh, it runs in my family too. I'd have a grandmother and an uncle that talked like you said, like it's our family history. I remember him always asking, "How do you fall through?" and saying very nonchalantly, "How do you fall through a hole that's not there?"
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what? You back that up? And then he would tell us the story how he fell through a hole, and when he went back to the location to get the flashlight he left, the hole was gone. There was no hole in that floor.
Isn't that something?
So it's like, I mean, it's amazing to see here. It's amazing to hear the old way people used to, like your grandmothers or my family, that the way they told these stories, like they're part of who we are. They're a part of it, which really these stories and what happened is a
Yeah.
part of who we are, really part of our history. And
Yes.
people lose that.
Yeah. And I always feel bad when parents immediately jump to the conclusion that you have imaginary friends. My children, well, at least two of them I know did. And I feel so bad because children really are seeing these spirits and they connect with them so well at that age that it's a very normal thing to be harmful meant. It's just the parent ignorance, and I don't mean that in a bad. They just don't know any better. They're afraid of it, and so they keep telling their children that's their imagination until the kids start to believe it. But I've always felt that dogs and children are like my best truth meters when it comes to if there is spirit activity in a place. If the animals are reacting to it and the children are talking about it, the parents are still in denial. I mean, I'd stake my bet on what the kids had to say. So it is really important to not discount that, I think, for children.
Well, I think a lot of ways too, because a lot of times I think it kind of helps to shut off the ability when I think naturally as you grow up, a lot of people lose it. But if you're constantly told, oh, it's just an imaginary friend, that's not real, or eventually you get to the point where you shut it off and you discredit what you're encountering, and then you kind of lose that ability as you get older.
Well, I'd say I agree with you because, like I said, for me, I knew mine was something more, even though they kept saying it because it never went away. And for a lot of those kids, eventually, because of the belief of what their parents tell them, and why would your parents lie to you, it eventually fades.
Yes. Yeah. And I remember someone telling me once that the Navajo people believe that as long as there's that soft fontanelle in the skull, in a baby's skull, as long as that's open before it closes off, they liken that as an opening through which they can see and sense spirit, which is interesting because about the time that fontanelle closes completely is usually the age that children kind of stop seeing things. I mean, 2, 3, 4, 5, and some go, even longer. I've seen babies talking to something that we couldn't see. But, there's a lot of truth behind that.
I would agree.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It's interesting to see that, like I said, your book really started back from stories of your grandmothers that made you now a storyteller too.
Yeah. That's interesting. I never thought of it that way, but it does seem to go back to that.
It really
And
does. It's easy to take something you learned when you were young and you became passionate about from people that affect you, and now this is your passion, and I cannot wait to read the book. I really can't.
Well, like I said, and I think Brandon mentioned this, it's kind of a cross between, hauntings and also kind of a travel guide, so people can up and go. And I actually have started a second book, which is going to be more along the lines of a lot about what we're talking about here. What takes you from a person who has nobody else in the family that necessarily believes the same thing, sees the same things, or hears the same things that you do, to picking up and learning more about the whole world of the paranormal, because it's so vast. And my feelings are, and I go back to this, when I started out, I really didn't have a lot of input because like I said, there were no shows, people didn't talk about it. You couldn't go to college and get a degree in parapsychology maybe, but specifically what we do. But I really wanted to explain that you really don't need all the bells and whistles. I think we all have it within us, within our body's ability to sense things, our intuition, that we really have all those gifts that we all have. And I think that most paranormal investigators I know will refer to that sense of somebody standing behind you. Maybe there's somebody over there, or you might walk into a room and get a sense of foreboding that you can't explain. So I think all of us do still use that, but it's such a, you really can rely on your own body's reaction to things. And I guess it would be old school paranormal investigation.
I could see that.
Yeah. If they want to connect with us more than we want to connect with them. And that's been my experience. And I think whatever we make available to them, they'll use it. You know, people laugh about those phone apps and, you know, and some of them are so, but we had, this has been a long time ago when some of them were just starting to come out. And I was at a table with a well-known psychic medium from the area, and then two of my team members also. So there were four of us. And I had the ghost app sitting on there because on the table, we had just been talking about it. And the guy to my left, Noah, who was in my group, said, you know, I've got a really bad headache, but do you guys have anything for me to take? And the woman sitting across from me, who was the medium, said, sure, I've got some Motrin, let me get it out for you. Got up to go into the bathroom, and we looked down at which was right next to me, and I didn't touch it, but it said, pass orange metal. That was the three words that came up on that. Now, it was crazy because I would always think that, but it goes back to the fact that that they, you know, they do hear it and they do want to connect. If there's something electrical sitting there that they can manipulate, they'll take advantage of that and use it. Even when you use rods, I found to be amazing tools in investigation. They're pretty old school. I mean, just a lot of stuff out there that I think we're afraid to do on our own without being able to back it up with equipment. But I guess you have to ask yourself, what is my purpose in doing this? Am I trying to prove to everybody that these are real, or am I trying to figure out, is there someone here? And if they're here, why are they still here? And you know, it's just, everybody has their own take on it, but I think we need to trust bodies a little bit more when we investigate.
See, I'm kind of old school in the way, because of my gifts, I don't like to go in knowing anything beforehand.
Yeah.
But occasionally we'll go in and I like to keep the old school recorders or the cameras.
Yeah.
The digital, I use a digital camera because that's my first ever investigation. I had the best evidence I have ever got in my entire life on a digital camera.
Really.
And trust letting the energy around talk to my body, talk to the people around, because a lot of times things manifest when you have not all the bells and whistles.
Yes, it's true. And I think if they really want to touch base with you, to interact with you, they will do whatever they can. Yeah.
Yeah, like mine too.
Oh, what a cutie.
Somebody wanted their mama really bad.
Oh my goodness. So cute.
Kathy, do you have any special abilities that you feel like you are sensitive to?
Yeah, I do. I feel like I always have, but it's not something that I don't seek it out. It's like it seeks me out, but I can't do it if I open myself up to it and put that out, then yeah, I do. But sometimes, like sitting at the table and seeing those two girls in the corner, I wasn't looking for that. It's just that sometimes if it's strong enough, it shows up
Yeah.
whether you want them to or not. They'll just step right in. So yeah, definitely. And I'm very comfortable with it. Like I said, it doesn't scare me or anything.
Good. I don't have anything like that whatsoever, but Brandon, do you feel like as time goes on, your abilities starting to grow a little bit? Last time I talked to you, you kind of felt like you were opening up to more and more. Is it happening more and more?
Yeah, so for mine, it always had, because like basically mine, I had some experiences when I was a kid,
Mhm.
like teenager years, and then I kind of blocked it out for like a long time. And then I started investigating. Like when I started investigating, I was doing much more, not trying to, I really didn't feel anything. I just started off just doing, kind of like a ghost hunters,
Yeah.
investigation, because that's how I kind of got started. Because basically mine was just a group of people on Meetup, we got together and started checking places out.
Yeah.
And then just like the more that I did it, like the more I started being able to pick stuff up on. And like I got to the point where like a lot of times I'll pick up on stuff before the medium, but I won't say anything because I like to wait until the medium validates what I'm picking up. So I'm like, okay, I picked that up too. So
Well, but for you, that's a very valuable piece of information because it
Yeah.
validates for you that
Yeah.
it's not your imagination.
yeah,
Good.
yeah,
Because I
Yeah.
think within the paranormal field, we know, like we've said this before multiple times, it's 90% sitting in the dark, 10% evidence, So it's that you got the instinct, then the psychic validated it. It's really that validation amongst, I would say amongst our own community that
Yeah.
matters the most to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
just don't know how many people um would see that as like a valuable tool in investing because there's so much um emphasis put on the scientific aspect of things. Like for the way I look at it is there are a lot of things that we can't prove. I mean, in our world today, that we can't say without a doubt that they exist because we can't measure or quantify them, like emotions. You love people, and when you love someone, strong emotion, scientists can't quantify that. They can't prove that it's actually an emotion. I mean, but we all know it is. And so for me, it's not so much, what I can prove, but what's valuable is like, say, for Brandon, to really just kind of rely on the intuition and that kind of thing that you get, just that little tingle. And I think the more we use it, the more readily available to us it is. But like I say, a lot of people just don't believe it unless and I'm married to a scientist. I mean, this man is very, it's right or it's wrong, it's black or it's white. And it's very hard to get your mindset out of that. Although I have to say, after all the years that we've been married, that he's a little bit more of a believer than he was before. He's just
Well,
he's
good.
thinking many to say, oh yeah, that's a bunch of baloney. But yeah, it's the, I don't know. I just don't think that there's anything wrong with it. I see it as just another ability we have, and you can, like, some children are born with this amazing ability, the prodigies, to play musical instruments, or they're mathematical wizards. And we can all play the piano or do advanced math if we train ourselves and work at it. Some of us have a little head start, but I think that the more we use those kind of extra tools that we're given, the more effective that we can be as investigators. But again, that's just my opinion.
Oh, I would agree with it. I mean, I know I've seen many of the different shows, and I watch them purely for the entertainment factor. Like my absolute favorite, I'm still working on talking these boys into it, is the Ghost Brothers, because they make me laugh the hardest.
Yeah,
Because it's TV. I'm not going to take everything verbatim, but it's also one of those things that watching them, you have a lot of people coming into the field that it's all about the evidence, all about the scientific aspect, it's all about the equipment, it's all about this, and they're totally missing that one aspect. It's the personal. It's
yes,
what you're bringing into it, what you are personally experienced, because that's the majority of what's going to happen is it's going to be a personal experience.
exactly. And then you add that personal experience to the arsenal of all the other ones collected over the years, and pretty soon you start seeing a pattern in things. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just and there's nothing wrong with the equipment either, because not everybody has the ability to sense it. And at least like your, I don't your EMF meter or whatever you use, it will lead you to a spot where maybe you should be concentrating. So I'm not saying that it doesn't have its place, and I still use it in a lot of things that I'm investigating as well. But I'm learning more and more to trust myself and the things that I hear and the things that I feel. I'm thinking maybe it's just get older, you don't care so much what other people think. Thank goodness, there's just um, when I would go to like a cocktail party with my husband when he was working, and people would come up to him and say, "Oh, he's a very good scientist. He's very well known." And they'd say to me, "Yeah, but what do you do?" And I'd say, "Oh, I'm really interested in the paranormal, and in fact, I do a lot of historical research and all this stuff." And they would just get kind of condescending little smile on their face. Like I expected them to pat me on my head and send me on my way. And, "Oh, isn't that nice?" And I'd say, "Yeah, I enjoy it." But I swear to you, by the time that party was over, I'd have 6 people pull me aside when no one else was looking, because they couldn't be seen with me, God forbid. So my brother had an experience last year, and it was always a brother or a cousin, or it was never them, but I knew it was them. And so everybody has a ghost story, but not everybody is comfortable in sharing. And I always think to myself, wouldn't it be great in this world if we could talk about this as comfortably as we do other things, and just kind of accept it and let it be. But I think that's been my problem, is I've not a problem, but I've never been afraid to say who I am and what I do. And what I do to some people really sounds crazy. So it is what it is.
Well, then it's a good thing you're around like-minded people this evening.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, it's always fun to talk about it with people who share your thoughts and your beliefs. So it's been fun.
You always on that note too. I've had so many times where like you have people that aren't believers. They're like, "Oh, I don't believe in any of that the stuff," but then like after a while, then you can get them to go like on investigations. They'll be like with a client and be like, the wife will call us in or whatever because the wife is feeling something's going on. They goes, "Oh, there's nothing there." But after talking about like, "Well, this one time I had this and then I had this, but I don't believe in any of that."
And what's the shame in believing that? I mean,
You
is it
know?
really terrible? I don't get
Yeah,
that.
I don't know.
I mean, that kind of reminds
The
me.
experiences.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of like the story my great grandmother used to always talk about living in a haunted house, and she would always hear footsteps, but my grandfather never did until one day that there was a door that would never stay shut, and he wedged a butcher's knife between the door and the door frame to keep it shut. And I mean, he couldn't even pull it out. And the next thing you know, he hears like a few weeks later, he hears clank, and the knife was on the ground, and we're moving.
Nope.
He's like, "Nope, we're done." And it just takes that, even non-believers,
Yeah.
It takes that one time. And
I
then
think that-
they still might not believe fully, but they can't explain that.
Yeah, things that make you go, you just, yeah, and you have enough of those, and pretty soon you find yourself more of a believer than you thought you were. Yep.
I thought a good one to talk about was the old mill in Dundee, Michigan. That's one I've investigated a few times. Like the first time I had was more like a public ghost hunt. That's an old grist mill. I think it's like 1826, and eventually got converted to like a Ford Motor Company. Like they were manufacturing stuff out of there too at one point in time. Later on, now it's just a museum with a bunch of artifacts. We were down like in the basement. And this was a public ghost hunt, so there's like way too many people in there to do like a real investigation. But it's kind of the first time. It was one of they have like a Old Mill Parafest every year there, I think around November. So we were there for that like a few years ago, and me and like one of the other team members I was on, like they have like a lot of like celebrity speakers, and like you go into a particular area and then you would investigate with that celebrity speaker or whatever. So we were down in the basement, and they were running like a spirit box thing, because that's about all you can really do with a bigger group, because an EVP session is, you're not going to get quiet enough to be able to do EVPs. So they were doing that while we were down there. And the other team member like standing like way back, like almost like we had like feeling of like being repelled from the group. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, man, I'm just feeling like this old man's energy. He just wants us to scare everybody out of here. Like he sees them almost as like a bunch of drunk teenagers around a campfire. It's kind of like how he's. So I look around to like where my team member is. She's like down on the ground trying to find like a stone to like chuck towards their direction, not at them, but chuck towards them to try to scare them. Like, which isn't something we would normally be doing at all. But it was just, I think we were both just kind of picking up on that energy.
Yeah.
And then out there before with like the time after that, it was more of a private event with a smaller group of people. And that was one of the ones, like one of the medium there from like the host team was saying like, yeah, there's definitely feel like there's an older, grumpier man energy as one of the spirits that tends to hang out in the basement. So I'm like, I think I definitely picked up on that. That spirit.
Yeah, that is interesting. So you can trust things that you feel.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's that natural instinct.
Yeah.
And Kim, you say you don't, but as moms, we've got that instinct.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, but I don't pick up on any old man in the house, in the room, so.
No, but you know when something's not right with your kids.
Right, yeah. Yeah, for sure. But I get a tingling in the back of my neck when my kid's too quiet in the other room, right? Like he's up to no good.
Yep. It's all connected. It's just that our body has that extra ability to figure out something's up that we need to pay attention to.
Right.
Yeah.
Anytime a kid is quiet,
yeah,
that automatically raises the suspicion bells.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah, I think we're getting around an hour right now. Let me see if of course it doesn't show me on the phone one, but probably just gonna wrap it up now. Probably just do some final thoughts if there's anything anybody's got coming up, any events or anything, or anything that they want to promote or whatever. Just go around if anybody has. I don't really have anything coming up. I will be investigating the city of Milwaukee here in a couple months or a month or so, but that's what I'm looking forward to. But then I'm getting some more guests on, but right now I'm still in the process of getting some guest book. We'll be back in regular shows.
The whole city of Milwaukee?
No, it's the SS City of Milwaukee. It's a ship.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
to be more specific, non-Michigan people.
Yeah, it's a ship. Not the city of Milwaukee. Though there is a really haunted hotel, I think, in Milwaukee that I'd really like to check out. I can't remember what the name is, but I know like a bunch of the sports teams go in there, and like a lot of them end up leaving because the ghosts will keep them up all night.
I've heard of that too, and I can't think of what the name is.
Yeah. There's been a lot of athletes that have reported. It seems like it tries to keep the opposing team up so that way they don't play good the next day. because they're tired because they've been up all night.
think they would have figured out to change hotels by now, right?
Yeah, that's what a lot of them end up going and doing is they just go and get a bed and breakfast or something because they won't stay in the team hotel.
That's so funny.
Well,
Yeah.
Kathy, I gotta tell you, I'm leaving for Ireland pretty quick. And we'll be staying in some interesting places. And one of the places we'll be staying in for a couple of nights is a castle. So I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but for goodness sakes, if somebody starts breathing in the back of my neck when I'm laying in this castle, I am hightailing it out of there.
Oh,
I'd say bring
Well-
the old school recorder and keep it on at night.
Yeah. That would, yeah, it's so much fun. And I've been a couple of times, and there's one place you get a chance. It's Lep Castle,
What is it called?
Lep, but it's spelled Lemp.
Lemp. Okay.
And just Google it so you get an idea of it's not an overnight, at least they didn't offer overnights, but Ireland, it's like Ireland and Scotland. I mean, the whole country are
It's like
just,
one big ghost town.
pardon me.
I
Yeah,
think it's just one big ghost town.
Is it
Absolutely.
Lep near a lot of fairy mounds?
yes.
That's what I thought.
All over.
Fairy mounds.
Mhm.
Fairy. They're supposedly the fairies underneath these mounds, and they will captivate and enchant humans and bring them into their fairy mounds. It's very cool legends in Ireland. So yeah,
Okay.
Some of the
I'm gonna
mounds are
Google that too.
massive and some of the mounds are small, they're
Yeah.
everywhere.
yeah, but they're all over. And one of the things I loved most about both Ireland and Scotland is just how open-minded and accepting the people are of things that are supernatural or paranormal. Whoops.
Whoop.
It's part of their heritage. I mean,
Okay.
they are firm believers and they will love to share their stories with you. It's amazing.
Oh my gosh. Well, if I have any short stories to share from the locals, I'll be sure to put it on our Facebook page so everyone can read my
That would
adventure.
Great. That'll be great.
And I'm gonna Google
Kim's
fairy mound.
paranormal blog.
Hmm?
It would be Kim's paranormal blog from
Yeah,
Ireland.
there you go.
That would be great. Yes. Well, yeah, it was really nice chatting with you guys and meeting you. I've
You
met
too.
Brendan, but for everybody, I just think that it's so much fun. I think we were saying at the beginning to talk to people where you don't have to explain every single term you use, every single idea. I mean, you guys get it, and it's fun to talk to people who get it. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
it was a lot of fun, and maybe someday we can have you back on again. So
That's great. Boy, I've got some great stories from Scotland to tell you. So
ooh, that'd be cool. Maybe we could do a Scotland episode. That'd be
Yeah.
fun.
International episode. That would be
yes,
awesome.
exactly. Europe has some, they're just so old that they've had so much longer than we have in this country to experience and to accumulate experiences over the years. It's just fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. But thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Anytime, just let me know.
Okay, will do.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
The opinions expressed in the preceding program are those of the producer and not necessarily those of WKTV Community Media.